Hi everyone, my name is Justin DiSanti, and on behalf of my co-authors Allison Valier and Tamara Valovich-Cloud, I wanted to thank you for your interest in our study related to sports specialization. So for some brief context, we know that specializing early into an intensive degree can lead to harmful outcomes, particularly related to physical overuse injuries, yet we see this as a trend that's on the rise, and there's a sort of gap between what recommendations and evidence are saying in terms of advising against early specialization and what we perceive this pattern to be. So one window into understanding this trend may be to see the attitudes and behaviors that are driving athletes to specialize early. Other gaps in the literature include looking at stakeholders outside of the athlete, of their support system, such as their parents, and as well as different contexts than the sort of elite or collegiate setting, which is more conventionally used to understand these specialization behaviors. So for this study, we looked in the recreational community-based context. We looked between parent-athlete dyads, and we also wanted to know at this early youth sport, elementary school level, what are athletes doing at that point and what are they planning to do as they move forward in their participation pathways? So the three main categories of our study were first the sport participation pathways, current and planned. We looked at the perceptions of specialization, and lastly, their perceived sport experiences related to their enjoyment and burnout. We had 96 total participants in the study, which was comprised of 48 parent athlete dyads. There were 33.3 or 16 athletes of these were female, 32 were male, and the mean age was 8.81 years old, so pretty young here again. All of these participants came from one community-based recreational program, and their main sport, which we operationalized through asking them if they had to quit all sports and only play one, what would that main sport be? So a difficult question at this age, but one we did feel was important for reference for the remaining survey questions. So we saw that there was a variety, with the most frequent being basketball and soccer. Looking first at their sport participation pathways, we broke this into first their current degree of sports specialization. This was using the DiSanti 3-point scale, which categorized their degree. We see looking at the moderate and high degrees, so this is one of those three items, they responded yes to 2 for moderate or 3 for high. When we grouped those together, we saw that the athletes were significantly more likely to self-classify as moderate or high specialized even at this early age than their parents were. Secondly, we looked at their frequency of planned specialization pathways. So we asked them for this: do you currently or do you plan to specialize for these 3 levels of school, which also align with developmental model of sport participation? And we saw that the group differences here came in the elementary school age, so that at either the feeling that they were currently specializing or plan to specialize in elementary school was more likely for the athletes than their parents. So overall, this shows us that this perception of the current degree and the planned pathway, that athletes were more likely to see themselves as highly specialized here early, though these were similar ratings or not significant difference as they planned for middle school and high school. The second category here were related to perceptions of specialization. So this was using a perception scale. That's now the second wave of validation, but this version here currently was validated using 15 items. So this gives a global score of the participants' perception, as higher scores being more favorable and lower scores being less favorable in related to specialization, rated from this 1 to 4 scale on the bottom. So just to give you a quick example, we have the first question here: playing one sport all year is the best way for me to get better at that sport. So if the athlete or the parent rated that as a 4, as a strongly in favor, agreed, that would mean they were more in favor of specialization. Okay, so looking at those mean results in the paired sample t-test, we saw that there was no significant difference here, so that both parents and athletes were exhibiting similar perceptions of the overall utility and degree of their overall perception of specialization. Our last category here were perceived sport experiences. So this was first related to a 3-item perceived sport enjoyment variable. Did they feel that their sport experience was enjoyable, led them to making friends, liking their teammates and coaches? And there were no significant differences on this scale, which were the items rated were 1 to 5 for the mean. But we did see this significant difference in terms of athlete burnout. So using the athlete burnout questionnaire, we found that the athletes were rating themselves significantly more burned out than their parents were. So even at this early level, there's some higher risk in terms of the way the athletes are perceiving themselves in comparison to their parents. So in summary, we saw that even at this early age, though highly specialized athletes were uncommon, that athletes were likely to perceive themselves in some ways as more specialized, and feeling a little bit more worn out or burned out than their parents. So this is important to understand that these conversations about how many sports to play, how the athlete's experience is going, they're very important to do even at this early age. And then having a plan that there is shared together is something that's going to hopefully be helpful to kind of mitigate some of these risks of burnout, as well as overuse injuries as well. So comparing this to other contexts, comparing it to other age groups are all important future directions, but understanding these perceptions is, again, I think a very fruitful way of understanding what's going on here and where maybe your points of impact where we can make a change. Thank you.